What time is it? It's Packard Folks at time. Hat? Check. Shirt? Check. Pants? Optional. Mug? Double check. Check us out at cafepress.com/PackardPokesat where you can get all this great merchandise and more.
Do you like Packard Pokesat and want to hear it on demand and on the go? Download the free app today at Stitcher.com. Available on iOS, Android, Nook, and iPad.
This is Packard Pokesat, and I'm poking at your news. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another fine edition of Packard Pokesat. I am your immutable and unmutable host, Packard Sonic, and joining me tonight from the far west coast is Connie, Practical Magic 9.
Hello from the Pacific Northwest, which is lying about our weather.
It's not really hot out here. It's not really cold out here. It's not whatever.
Everybody come here right now and think, oh my God, look at all this blue sky. Wait one more month.
Yeah. Actually, this morning, there was a couple places just north of me that actually had a frost warning. So I was like, what month is this?
Where I live right now, that'll be me in another month.
Yeah.
Not for the lower Puget Sound, but where I'm at, yeah.
That'll be about me in about a month, too. They'll start saying frost warnings and whatnot. I was like, that's too soon. We need 6 more months. Just 6 more months of warm weather, please. Please, can we make that happen?
It's supposed to be frost on the pumpkin, not frost on the Packard.
That's right. If we didn't already have this show named, I'd name it No Frost on the Packard.
Next season.
Next season. Right, next season. Maybe next show. By the way, next week we are going to be having a crossover show with the group from Brainstorm Podcast. So that'll be a spectacular fun thing, I'm hoping. So so be here at 9 p.m. for our crossover show with Brainstorm. And joining me tonight, also from the far East Coast, is the Atheist Ranger.
Hey, what's up?
And joining us from the ill that is Illinois is Matt, Not a Believer 71.
Hello, everybody.
Well, we have an interesting discussion tonight. And speaking of frost and everything like that, you're walking on something slippery and you just can't get a good grip on it. And no matter how much you try to make your way, you keep falling backwards or you keep sliding in the same spot. That's what it's like to talk to someone who says, I'm spiritual, but not religious. So, and that is our topic for tonight. How do you debate someone that has this problem of saying that they're spiritual but not religious, and how to start that conversation? Okay, everybody, let's talk. I find it very difficult, first off, because this is like nailing Jell-O that's already wrapped in grease to a tree to nail them down, because I have no idea what that even means. I mean, as far as people saying I'm spiritual, what does that mean? I've tried to nail down a lot of Christians on this. I get different answers all the time. They talk about, oh, it's the feeling of this or feeling of that. That doesn't help me any, because I can't experience what you're experiencing. Any thoughts, anybody?
Seeing as I have subscribers who actually are of that nature, I've had discussions with one of them. I don't know if he's on YouTube anymore, but his name was VC Magnus. He was a spiritualist, and in my personal experience, just simply asked them what do they mean by spirituality? And my experience, most of them do believe in an afterlife. They believe that meditation is one of the ways to possibly have access to that afterlife. Yeah. Well, I mean, afterlife is kind of a...
That still doesn't answer the question of what is spiritual? What does that mean? Is it a feeling? Is it a turn off the I-90? What is it exactly?
Well, again, it's been a while since I talked to a spiritualist, but they do believe that the only thing they have in common maybe with religious people is that they do believe in souls.
Mm-hmm. I understand they believe in a soul, but since we have no evidence of a soul, I mean, that still doesn't answer the question. That's what I'm saying, is that the meaning is so bizarre. It goes without saying that you just can't nail it down properly. I mean, how do you make a headway into this situation if you're trying to have a rational conversation with somebody who says, basically, I'm spiritual but not religious, meaning that they don't go around proselytizing, which I'm glad for. I am so glad for that they don't go around proselytizing for the most part. except for in those instances where you get into a situation where somebody is, I don't know, somebody in their family is passing on, or they're having a family situation, and then all of a sudden, then the God stuff starts coming out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they say, "Well, pray this, pray that." It's like, well, yeah, I don't do that, so that it's really a non-starter at that point.
Well, I mean, I think Buddhism is isn't Buddhism like a spiritual religion?
Well, actually, as far as I understand it, Buddhism, I might be thinking of something else, but Buddhism, some Buddhists don't actually said they don't believe in a God. They believe in, I don't know if they believe in many gods, or maybe I'm confusing that with another religion. But Buddhists, I don't think they actually believe in a God. I can't think of it off the top of my head at this moment.
And neither could I. I mean, I find Buddhism interesting, but at the same time, I don't fully understand it. And there's different kinds of Buddhism, but it is more of a spiritual thing. It's more, I don't know, individual. Not individual. It seems like for some it's almost like it's more like a philosophy of life, and sometimes there's reincarnation in many lives, but that's as far as I can really take any conversation about Buddhism, because I don't know about it. It's one of the few religions I would actually love to go ahead and study, just because it seems very thoughtful to me.
I've had conversation with Buddhists, and I've looked up their religion a number of years ago, and Buddhists, they have blood on their hands just as much as any other religion does, as a matter of fact. So I would never consider becoming a Buddhist ever, because
no, but at the same time, I'm just saying, I think, because human beings are involved in it.
Wait a minute. I'm not getting my memos. Human beings involved in Buddhism. Got it. Okay. I had down RoboCop. I'm just saying. I don't know why that is there. So.
Yeah, but the spiritualists that I've dealt with, they are like very heavy into meditation. They, at least the ones I've encountered, they believe that's a tool to get in tune with your quote unquote spiritual self, whatever that means.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just a tricky thing to talk to people to talk to, because they're not radicalized. They're not. I wouldn't even say they're fundamental, at least in my experience.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is because they're not as fundamentalist as some of the crazier people that we meet on like Google Plus or YouTube or whatever, where they get out there. I'll give you a perfect example of someone who is crazy religious, and he's a big name in the religious community right now, at least on YouTube anyway, is G-Man, and we're all familiar with G-Man. He goes around making some weird ass claims and whatnot too. Of course, I don't want to say his name 3 times. He might show up.
Right?
Here's your tinfoil hat there.
Okay. I'll remember to keep that nearby next time. So, but no, I mean, there are people like that who go around proselytizing, and they will, they make all these claims, which, for one, some of it is not supported by their religion at all, and 2, they pull it wholly out of their ass, and they go by feels. But this question remains, and how do you start the conversation without having someone actually, dying before they have to start bringing it up and whatnot?
Well, if you ask a Christian whether they're religious, and they say, no, I have a personal relationship with Jesus, which that was, I was in on the nexus of that move within the church, making religion more personal and not about dogma, and not about, rituals and things like that. And so as for a spiritualist to say, I'm not religious, is, I think, another way of distancing themselves from that. But it gives them this, like you've been talking about, though, this is what you've all been saying, at least what I'm hearing, is like all this wiggle room, all this stuff that isn't provable. But aren't we all born with this curiosity about things that we can't see, can't touch? We have imagination, and we all, whether it's Jesus or Buddha or,
For me personally, it's about the, that hot chick down the road, because I can't touch her either. So
it's just that this is what I found when I first left Christianity. I was bumping around in New Age movement and paganism, and it's like the Wild West out there when you talk about not having an organized religion.
Mhm.
Yeah, guess what? Everybody gets to decide for themselves what it is and what it isn't, and they do hang their shingle, metaphorically speaking, on the idea that we have a mind, we have a body, but we also have a spirit. It doesn't matter that you don't think that, oh yeah, you heaven, hell, Jesus and that invisible spirit. They still say, yeah, but I think there's a spirit. This
Right.
is all about like afterlife for many lives, or this other thing within ourselves that unites us.
You made a couple interesting points there. When people start bringing out you've got a spirit, quote unquote, I
Mhm.
always ask them, where does the spirit in my body live? We've had that discussion on this show a while back, actually. When Crystal was still on the show, I asked her, where does it live in the body? Because Crystal is more honest than most people I've come across when it comes to religion. She said, I just don't know. And I think that's the most honest answer that I'll ever get out of a Christian, because I brought up the example of how this is a medical study that they've done where they gave somebody basically they split the hemispherectomy. There it is, hemispherectomy.
Where they
With
divide the left and right hemisphere. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Where they divided the right and left hemisphere. Now, right side, for example, could control speech, but the left side of the brain couldn't control speech at all, and it could only control like muscle control. Now, they asked, and they could turn on and off, I guess. I'm not sure if they turn it on and off, or they could just ask the hemispheres different questions at different times. And they asked the right side of the brain, do you believe in a God? And that one said, yes, I do. And they asked the left side of the brain, do you believe in a God? And it said, no, I don't. So that begs the question, does the spirit, quote unquote, say live in this one hemisphere of the brain where it says it believes and where it does, and the one that doesn't? And what do you do about people who are born twins? Do they get a copy of the same spirit? And where does it live? It lives in your heart. What if you get a heart transplant? Do you get a different spirit at that time? Or
Okay. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish. I'm sorry. Finish. Oh, I'm just excited. I'm thinking about something. So
okay.
I apologize.
So I asked, does it move? I mean, does it go into a lung? Does it go into my nipple? Where does it go? I mean, where does it go at that point?
All right. What if that struggle that you see there, what if that is where we have developed the notion of sin, of the dichotomy of good and evil, and bigger than the fact that we all screw up, all right?
We do. Wait a minute. I'll
Mental
get my
illness.
memos again there. Let me try that one down. We all
All right.
screw up. Okay.
Yeah, that's a industry term, by the way.
Oh, yeah, all right. I'll have to mark that one down as copyrighted, so I don't use that.
I guess I'm not quite sure how I'm going to phrase the question, but does everybody see what I'm thinking? Like, what if the right and left hemisphere are fighting, like in that episode of Star Trek where you have the
Let this be your final battlefield.
yeah? Is that where God is that what's going on in our own heads, in this own little microcosm? I don't know. Never mind. Talk about getting spiritual. I'm verklempt. Go ahead, discuss.
Matt, you haven't chimed in. What do you think here? I know you've been saying some stuff here on the sidebar, but no one else has seen that except for us. So what do you think?
Well, I think that, a spiritualist, I mean, this is just my opinion. I think they believe in God, but they don't believe in a religion. They just kind of like do their own thing, more or less.
I've had conversations with people like that. They say, well, I'm spiritual, but I don't follow a particular religion. And to a point, they believe what they're saying is true, but the problem is that they're actually just lying to themselves at that point, because they say they believe in a God, and I ask them specifically which God they believe in. Do you believe in the God that's in the Bible or what? In some cases, I'm not going to say all because that would be a lie. In some cases, they will say, yes, I believe that's the God in the Bible, but I don't follow a particular religion. But in that instance, you are following a particular religion. You are following the Christian religion based on the Bible. And I've had these discussions as well, where I said, I don't believe in the God in that particular Bible or any Bibles. Again, then they get all wiggly room, like Connie was saying there. So they try to give themselves an out so they can't be nailed down. I think that the problem is that they're just afraid to commit one way or the other. In some instances, I think that the fact is that they are uncomfortable believing what they believe, so they're trying to find a way out, but they just don't want to completely let go of it because of superstition and crap that they've been taught over the years by their parents and family and friends.
Yeah, but I think, for people in that situation, I think they've probably stepped away from religion,
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
And that's why they're spiritualists. At least that's what I think.
There's security in the vagaries of just this big void of, well, we know but we don't know, we suspect, we feel.
Right.
If it's based on feelings, then it's subjective.
Well, it's also their comfort zone too.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's their comfort zone.
While we are poking at your news, you can poke us at Facebook and Twitter, or poke us with an email at ppapodcast@gmail.com, or leave us a message at 662-709-PPAP. Join us live on YouTube/Packard Pokesat on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time. Be part of the conversation by live chatting with us during the show. Enjoy the show? Help support us by becoming a monthly patron at patreon.com/Packard Pokesat, or look awesome by buying something at cafepress.com/Packard Pokesat. No money, no problem. You can help us by sharing the show with friends and rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. For everyone that shares and rates us, you kick ass.
The Atheists,
The Bible.
and No Wardrobe, the podcast.
Wait a minute. No wardrobe? You mean we're going to be naked while we do this?
Well, seeing how I'm an atheist and I'm reading the Bible, and since clothes are flammable,
Fire! Fire! Fire!
I thought it might be a good idea to take them all off first.
Naked or not, follow along as we read, analyze, and try to keep you from falling asleep as we go through this boring-ass book.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker. Who knows? We may even be on YouTube someday.
It's kind of like talking to a deist, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say that would be kind of accurate there. Some famous deists were like Thomas Jefferson, for example. He was a deist. If I'm not
No, I think
mistaken.
you're right.
Obviously, speaking as a former deist myself, yeah, that's pretty much that's most of the spiritualists that I come across are deists.
Yeah. When I was stepping out of religion, this is just me speaking. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but for myself, when I was stepping away from religion because I was quote unquote taking a break from it at the time, I would say I was spiritual but not religious. But if someone tried to ask me, and sadly no one did, ask me what I meant by that, I would have just probably said that I believe in a God, but that's it. And I think in some instances, I think that would probably be the pat answer for most people who would say that. I mean, that at least that's in my experience anyway. Of course, like I said, I could be wrong.
Well, when I want to have a discussion with my friends or relatives who are still believers, I would have to say that I move myself more towards the middle, more towards, I guess you would say, even because I don't necessarily believe I won't believe in the Christian God. There may be something out there. I do hedge it because I want to have a discussion, and I don't want to alienate people. I won't alienate people over an imaginary being, right? And I can do that. I can do that comfortably because it doesn't mean that I believe. It just means okay, look, I can give you that we don't understand everything because I don't understand. I'm honest, but I don't know. I find it interesting that if actually more people were spiritual and not religious, like as in organized religion, do you think that it would dilute it? Is it like homeopathy? All right.
Just add lots of water, and then it will be diluted even more and more.
Right. And if you have less and less that you feel dogmatic about, and honestly, if religion was extremely personal, would people be indoctrinating children every week in a church? Children might still see things at home that their parents are doing, but once they reach ages of reason, wouldn't this just further and further dilute to the point where, again, it's personal? It still might be irrational, but we're not going to go to war over it,
Yeah.
Pardon my French, but yeah, just like, I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, we have gone to war over religion.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
constantly,
I know.
constantly.
I'm thinking in the future. I'm just thinking that, would it be such a bad thing, I guess, if this is the death of religion is this, I don't want to say slow death, but by the
Well,
further and further division.
I remember when the Catholic Church was doing these commercials on TV to try to get Catholics to come back. This was probably about, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago.
Okay, yes.
There were these commercials on TV that they were trying to get Catholics to come back because I guess a lot of have left the religion. And just watching these commercials is like, really? I mean,
What would they say? You remember what they would say in these commercials by chance?
oh god, they would show somebody who's having problems in their lives, and there's this one guy who walked into this room and he sat down and he started crying, and I can't exactly remember what else happened with it, but
Okay, so basically they're appealing to emotion. It's like, oh, you're having a bad time. Well, Jesus can fix it.
well, it wasn't like that. It was more they were trying to get people to come back, but not begging,
If they're still projecting somebody walk into a room and there's someone got a problem, they're trying to use a projection of, hey, you're feeling really bad, so apparently you need Jesus for this reason.
Right.
I come across religious people like this all the time, where they say, hey, you just hate God because reasons X, Y, or Z, and they base their whole premise on feels. Like they've been watching God's Not Dead, where they say, well, you just hate God. It's like, oh my God, you got me on that one. I just do. No, we don't hate God. We just don't like the religion, period. And we don't believe in the claims of the God being there.
It's a very common thing, and that's what I've been asked. Not by a lot of people, but by some. Say, well, what happened? This is because your dad died, right? Or this is because of this or that. And I'm like, no. And by the way, man, non-believer. Yeah, I looked it up, and yeah, back to 2009 to 2010, Catholics Come Home commercials. I'm like, I put it in our general chat room.
Yeah, I saw that. That's what it was. Catholics Come Home. They're trying to get people to come back to the Catholic Church because people were leaving for whatever reason. Probably maybe
other religions or ones that didn't require quite as much money.
well, maybe
or
maybe
one that didn't require child.
Yes.
maybe
Yeah.
that could have been part of it too. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, come back.
Or maybe they became atheists. I don't know.
Come back to the Catholic Church. We promise we will not rape your child as much.
Jeez.
Mike.
And if we do, we'll just leave.
Yeah.
I hope there are any priests listening to this right now.
I hope all the priests are listening to this right now.
I hope so.
Well, yeah, I mean, I meant that, but I'm just saying if they're, never mind, forget it.
It's okay.
They know what they've done.
We got to watch our P's and Q's on this now. So
yeah, well, I got to bleep a few words out now for the rebroadcast. So, by the way, if you listen to the show on iTunes and Stitcher, all the swears will still be in there. It's just when it goes up on YouTube, I'll clean up the swears there, but not from the original audio. So you've got that going for you. But we're kind of skipped over how to get the conversation started, though. How do we get that conversation with these people started? I mean, we've talked about how the problems with trying to start the conversation. We only have a little bit of time left here, unfortunately. But what would be a good way to actually get that conversation going with these
Curiosity.
people? Curiosity is a good one. I mean, how do you get the question going, though?
Well, how do you know that person is a spiritualist to begin with?
Right.
Let's just say that they've already said, I'm spiritual but not religious. They've already declared that. We've already passed that point. So where do we go from there?
If my best guess is probably just to ask them what specifically, and I know that may sound weird, what specifically they believe regarding the spiritual realm.
That would be a good place.
Yeah, that's just my best guess.
Well, yeah, that would probably be the number one question that
Yes.
a person would ask.
Well, again, you have to understand it. You have to understand what it is that they believe before you can even respond. Just say, okay, let's lay this out, and not to be judgmental, but just to say, okay, what do you think about this and this and this, and move on from there.
Now, is this from an atheist standpoint, like from an atheist asking a spiritualist, or could it be anybody?
Well, since I'm an atheist, I would have to be from an atheist standpoint.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, but what if a person who was Catholic, was asking spiritualists these questions.
I don't know. Ask a Catholic.
Right. So
I shared an article, and this was specifically about ideas on 6 tips from an atheist to Christians on how to talk to atheists. And I think it works for both sides of the coin, all sides of the coin, not just, because it's not just any form of debate, discussion. And that would be the first thing, to not approach it as a debate, as a discussion, and not to be combative. Relate, don't debate, was one of the things I had highlighted here. And I'm like, yes, it's too easy, because in a debate you have a right and wrong, you have a winner and a loser. If you want to actually discuss things with people, I would say be open, and don't be quick to be sarcastic or things like that. Think about our
Well, then I might as well then I won't be able to talk at all, because that's all I've got is sarcasm. You've shut me up, Connie. Damn it.
really, Packard? You have to go that route. Don't.
It's not for everybody, Packard. That's okay.
That's
I'm not
right.
judging you at all.
It's an interesting discussion on how to deal with people like this, because I'm used to debating with people that, especially online, with people who they make all these grandiose claims, because it's easy to knock those out. But when you say you play this wiggly room game, like you feel like, to me, it feels like they're trying to snake their way through life without being one thing or the other. And that's fine if you want to do that. Personally, I mean, for me, I think it's a coward's way around.
Oh, well, a lot of times, when I first became a Christian, it was during the tail end of the Jesus movement. I was a very young teen, and a lot of people, even in the church, had a hard time dealing with, I'm not religious, I'm a Christian, and we were asking people, are you born again and stuff. It was started this whole change of the discussion, but I don't know. I just think that being open to asking people and talking about trying to understand where they're coming from is important. And I think that in a lot of ways, spiritualism is kind of this well, again, I mentioned before, this wild west of religious ideas. And so, because they're capitalizing on the idea that they're not roped into religious dogma. Guess what? Give them another 10 years and they will be.
Yeah.
Because they need donations, and they need to have their buildings and things. It gets normalized, and then the new thing comes along, and we're the Mavericks. We don't do things the way that everybody else did.
Yeah, I imagine they will do that. We've only got a few minutes left here, so let's get some last thoughts on this. Matt, what are your final thoughts on how to start a conversation with people who say they are spiritual but not religious?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I probably wouldn't start a conversation because I'm not, a religious person. But if I did, I would probably ask them what we had talked about.
Okay, which is what? Just for the final, for clarity.
God, I can't remember what we were just talking about. Can't remember.
Okay,
sorry.
That's okay. Atheist Ranger, what are your final thoughts on how to start a conversation with the people who are spiritual but not religious?
Just like I said earlier, specifically, like, just pretty much lay down what they believe, let them say it, because most spiritualists, let me be very clear again, this is just my experience. I can't speak for Packard, I can't speak for Connie, I can't speak for Matt. In my experience, most spiritualists, quote unquote, are deists. As many of you know, I'm a former deist myself. I used to defend that position. So but as bottom line, just lay out what they believe and refute it if you can, if it's possible.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Connie, what are your final thoughts on the question of how to start a conversation on this?
I think nailing Jello to the wall was a very apt description. We need
greased up Jello, not just Jello to a wall, greased up Jello to a wall.
Yes. Well, I don't know. I think that spiritualism might be the next outgrowth of organized religion, and if we want to see people actually just owning up to their beliefs, patience and persistence. Don't be combative. Try not to be combative, and maybe that means copious amounts of alcohol and drugs for some people, but we won't win the arguments because there's not enough substantive proof.
Yeah.
But pointing people towards the idea of embracing secularism and religious ideas to be personal and not dogmatic.
Okay.
In the public forum, I guess.
Okay.
So
Fair enough. Fair enough. For myself, I would kind of approach it like I would approach any theist in the regard of the way they always say, what is it that you believe and why do you believe it? I think the most important question is why, because if they can be nailed down of why they believe it, then I think that's more of an inroad on how to take the next step from there. And then you can address each and individual concern from that point. That's just me, though.
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank my co-hosts as always. And we'll be back on Wednesday for our midweek show at 5 p.m. Chicago time. I don't know if it's CST or
Central Time.
No, I mean I don't know if it's Central Standard Time or Central Daylight Time. I don't know anymore. I don't care. Just look for Chicago at 9 p.m. or at 5 p.m. rather on Wednesday. So whatever time it is where you're at, and if it's 5 p.m. in Chicago, that's the time you got to be here. So
you stared at the eclipse, didn't you, Packard?
Who said that?
Should affect your eyesight, not your hearing.
Do I look like Donald Trump?
Oh, if only. If only.
Alrighty. We'll be back on Wednesday. See you then. This has been Packard Pokes That with Okay, Let's Talk.
And that's a wrap.